Hi everyone, Shafiq here. Welcome to another edition of Founders Forum, where we answer questions submitted by founders and innovators like yourself. But before we do, I want to remind you to subscribe to our YouTube channels, somewhere right over here, as well as click on the notification bell so you can gain immediate access to the latest episodes of our show where we help founders by answering critical questions related to systematically building your startup. All right, hey Steven, are you ready with your first question?
Hey there, Shafiq. Yes, I have it right here. And this question comes from a founder whose CPG startup is in the repeatable sales and delivery startup phase. And she asks regarding her company, how do I know when my startup is ready for scale?
Okay, so that's a good question. Well, let me start by saying that scaling too early can kill your startup fast. So knowing the answer is really important. And there are two methods to figuring out your readiness. The first method is to assess your startup in terms of capabilities. And of course, the second method is to assess your startup in terms of accomplishments. So we like a hybrid approach to determining if you are ready for scale. In terms of capabilities, you should have the ability to generate qualified leads on demand, and each net new lead should not require extra effort on the part of your team. The lever you want to engineer is that of advertising budget. The more ads you buy, the more qualified leads you generate until you saturate the market segment that you're targeting. In addition, as you expand your geographic reach, you can drive down the cost of acquiring each qualified lead. So in terms of capabilities regarding leads, that's the kind of way you want to think about it. So when you have achieved that capability to generate 10% month-over-month growth in qualified leads, then you've met one of the criteria that qualifies your startup to be ready for scale growth. The next capability or the criteria is converting qualified leads into paying customers. The ability to convert a qualified lead into a paying customer in less than 24 hours for B2C products and less than 2 weeks for a B2B product is one of those kind of another critical capability. And then one quick note on the B2B products. Selling to large enterprise is notoriously slow process, something lasting months. However, there are many examples of successful startups that have changed the long sales cycles by innovating on how corporations make purchasing decisions. So software as a service is an example, an excellent example of how many SaaS providers have made it easy to incrementally purchase the software by the individual within a corporation using a credit card. So rethinking how you package your product and allow users to quickly validate that your solution will work for them allows you to convert a risky long buying cycle into try before you buy approach. Now the third capability is and the last one is your organization's ability to consistently produce and deliver the product to your end customers and gain product adoption in a reasonable time frame appropriate to your product. So you need to aim for product adoption rates higher than 90% for B2C products and 95% for B2B products. Now in terms of hard achievements, you want at least adoption rate of 90% for the last 100 customers you sold for your B2C product, and at least 95% for the last 20 B2B customers. When you reach those numbers, then you're ready in terms of capabilities and accomplishments to scale. Steven, you want to add your thoughts to this, my way of looking at it?
Yeah, this is great, Shafiq. You've laid out a really clear framework for a founder to understand the capabilities or accomplishments a startup would need to achieve prior to scaling. Now, one thing I'd like to add is that scaling is an iterative process. So, as an example, when scaling sales, a startup is attempting to move from $10,000 in monthly recurring revenue, or MRR, to $100,000. And they're doing this rather than skipping all the way ahead to $10 million of monthly recurring revenues. And that's because the scaled activities, the team talent, the organizational capabilities will evolve as the startup climbs the growth ladder. You can't just jump way ahead without creating risk. Matter of fact, on the flip side, If a founder ignores your framework related to capabilities and accomplishments by prematurely scaling the business, then substantial new risks do develop. An example of this would be a startup that doesn't have a proven scalable lead engine, but the founders happen to be able to raise an investment round and that investment round's goal is to massively grow sales and production. Well, in that case, when the leads don't keep up with scale plans, then the startup will have a buildup of inventory that it's unable to sell. It may have to slash prices to compensate or even artificially generate demand. That's just not sustainable. Okay, next question, Shafiq. This one comes from a founder who's just begun working on a software startup, and his question is, what is a good time to work out your brand?
Okay, so I like brand questions. A lot of founders who, like everybody's heard about brands, but really what is the value of a brand, right? What does it help you do that without branding you couldn't do? So the simplest way you can understand the value of a brand is by going to like that grocery store and looking at brand name cereal prices and comparing them to the generic alternative. You'll notice that the price difference can be up to 50% more for the brand name cereal. The same is true across almost all categories of consumer packaged goods. A brand buys you pricing power. So that's a great way for you to kind of like figure that out for yourself. The big value of a brand is pricing power. And so why is that? Why is that true? Well, it's because a brand cuts down the time it takes a buyer to make a purchasing decision by getting the buyer over the risk of the critical question, will this product solve my problem, right? A brand, by establishing a brand, you're kind of removing that hurdle in the mind of the buyer where they can get over that hurdle very fast because a brand established that yet it works and it delivers on its promise. So that speed, of course, means when somebody can make they can get rid of the risk, they can make a decision much faster, and they are generally willing to pay more to be able to make that decision faster. And that's borne out for all kinds of products. So that's the value of the brand. How have successful founders branded their startup? Well, we see two different patterns. One is around the founder's vision of the company itself. So if we go back all the way to Apple, Steve Jobs was all about better quality through superior design. Every product Apple introduced early on was better than its predecessor and constantly focused on creating a better experience for the user. So in this case, Apple was able to establish its brand right from the get-go by laser focusing on quality. Now, why did Steve Jobs focus on quality instead of cost or speed like his competitors at the time? Well, that started with, of course, the customer that Steve had targeted in his mind, that he had interviewed and gotten to know quite a bit. Steve Jobs, from the very early on, wanted to allow creative people to do more using computers. He knew that they didn't care about cost or speed. They cared about having a computer that just worked, one that didn't break down or crash while the customer was in the middle of their creative flow. So one way to understand how to think about your brand is to think deeply about the customer you want to serve and the value you can deliver to that customer that's inherently promised in the brand, right? So many founders take the approach of branding that is aligned with their vision of the product and the value they're creating in the marketplace when compared to alternatives. But they do more than that. They build their capabilities to constantly deliver the value. So as an example, Apple always hired the best industrial designers to design their hardware. They hired the best US designers to build their software. Now let's contrast that with Dollar Store. Completely different end of the spectrum, different technology, industry capabilities. It's a retail play. And in this case, if I have the story right, the founders built the Dollar Store on the insight that minimum wage earners couldn't afford consumer packaged goods from the grocery store or the big box retail store. So they went about repackaging everyday purchase items so they could be sold for $1. In this case, the founder didn't have the vision to be the low-cost provider. They stumbled onto the opportunity and chose to build a brand around the market they found. But whether you look at Apple or the dollar store, you have to keep in mind the customer and what they value in the brand, which of course starts with understanding the problem dimension you're tackling. So are you going to focus on costs, time, quality, or completeness? Your brand should be aligned with your product strategy, and of course vice versa. Now, Stephen, would you like to to add any thoughts on this and the way you look at this, the brand discussion?
Yes, I'd like to add that the timing of branding that you're describing really ties into the third startup phase of sustainable growth, which is perfect. Now, when founders may think about branding early, just as you elaborated on with Apple specifically, and even the dollar store approach, it's essential that a startup stay focused on completing the activities necessary to achieve the milestones related to the first two startup phases before focusing on branding during the third startup phase, which is why branding is a perfect fit then. Now, the big reason why that is if a product doesn't effectively solve a customer's compelling problem, or a startup is unable to activate its target customers, no amount of branding and vision will overcome these fatal flaws. So while branding seems like the fun part of building a business, being unable to execute will always erode any brand's value. All right, we have time for one last question, Shafiq, and this one comes from another early stage founder who's working on a fitness app and whose startup is in the market validation phase. Her question is, during your last episode, you discussed the use of earned media. Can you further elaborate whether earned media is an effective strategy for my startup?
Okay, so as a startup, trying to gain attention using earned media, of course it has its risks, right? Not all good media, earned media is good media. So let's start by understanding when you should think about getting media attention. If you're still trying to get market validation for your idea, then the only earned media attention you want is focused on the problem itself that you're solving. And the more press you can gain around becoming a thought leader, focus on the problem you're trying to solve, the better. Your sole concern at this stage of your startup is to find other like-minded individuals who also care about solving the problem. Most of them will be potential customers. However, you may run into some competitors, and of course you'll also run into some talent. And that talent, of course, can help you with your startup. So in this stage, the other thing I want to emphasize, you don't understand enough about the problem to be able to start talking about the solution. So staying focused on the problem, why it exists, how solving it will make a real difference for those who suffer from the problem, is the thing that you want to focus on while in market validation. Now, if you're past the market validation phase and are trying to get your first 100 satisfied customers, then you can start to define the solution in terms of your differentiation. So getting earned media on public presentation, you do at conferences, as well as early customer wins, is a good approach. Of course, once you're past repeated sales and delivery and are ready for scale, then you're ready to publicly launch your startup. And at this point, there are several different strategies you can employ to gain earned media. The most common strategy is around, of course, customer wins. Many companies publicly announce customer wins to gain earned media coverage. The other great topic is around when you need to hire talent, like you're in growth mode, and then promoting how fast you're growing helps you, and advertising, of course, around the talent that you're looking for and getting news coverage for that. That's another great way to get earned media. And of course, that's a great way for you to also recruit in some good talent that's in the marketplace looking for to work for a company like yours. So, which in turn should lead to talent taking the time and trying to find you, right? They'll seek you out. So it's a great way to drive inward strategy. It's a great triggering event. Another strategy used by many disruptive startups, like Tesla, of course, Steven's favorite startup, although they're not so much of a startup anymore. But like Tesla, is to court controversy. Disruptive startups like Tesla love controversy because it allows them to engage the public, right? They can create a lot of engagement by both the detractors on either side of the issue. Now, this is of course a tricky balancing act, but if done correctly, then can lead tremendous following and engagement from all those who are on the side of the issue the startup is advocating. So in Tesla's case, they chose to pick a fight with big oil. Now, it seemed like a foolish play early on, but got them legions of fans who cared about the environment and saw Tesla as a legitimate market-driven answer to the climate change problem. Now, there are no less than 100 YouTubers with millions of followers dedicated to covering everything Tesla. Now, one more example of embracing controversy. If you recently saw the Apple privacy ad, they took direct aim at Facebook and other social media companies that make money by exposing their users' private information. Now, Stephen, can we play that ad real quick?
I've browsed 8 sites for divorce attorneys today. I browsed 8 sites for divorce attorneys today.
My login for everything is Pauline@paulinefoo.com.
I love working with you.
Me too.
Red heart emoji.
Pink heart emoji.
Yellow heart emoji.
Blue heart emoji.
I hate Lee though.
Puke emoji.
Puke emoji.
I am currently reading an article titled 10 Ways to Keep Sweaty Hands from Holding You Back.
My home is in 1,000 feet.
My heart rate is currently 150, 151, 152, and back down to 150.
On March 15th at 9:16 a.m., I purchased prenatal vitamins and 4 pregnancy tests.
The number on my credit card is 02237122210221.
Okay, so you can see how this ad created a lot of buzz. They were able to gain significant earned media off their normal advertisement. Now, companies advertise all the time, but they rarely get the kind of coverage Apple got for their ad. And Apple is no stranger to this strategy. When Steve Jobs was way back when Apple was first launching, they explicitly used this strategy back, with their 1984 advertisement against IBM. And recently, of course, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Epic Games took a page out of Apple's playbook and used exactly the same spoof of the ad controversy to gain earned media coverage against Apple. So Apple got a little bit of a taste of what they had done early on in their career, played against them just last week, as we're recording this. So if you've not seen their ad, just search for Epic Games Apple 1984 ad. It's really brilliantly done. Now, of course, I've already mentioned Tesla. So Stephen, would you like to take this opportunity to fawn over Tesla and Elon Musk one more time? I know you've been trying to get him to tweet at you, and it's been 2 hours since you last talked about them. So go ahead.
I think you've out Elon me this time, Shafiq. So I'll pass. Still waiting for your tweet, Elon. Anytime. I'll stop everything. All right. One thing I want to remind everyone about is just a quick setup of what earned media is, just to kind of catch everyone up, which is that earned media is when your company receives press attention and or word of mouth marketing from your customers. In other words, it's not something you can buy, it's not something you can do, it's something you earn, deservedly, presumably. Also, earned media is an iterative activity that depends really on which phase the startup is in. So Shafiq, you already elaborated on this really nicely by focusing on, as an iteration, you focus on the problem to be solved. That's something a founder could blog, podcast, produce videos about that subject early on. Now, technically speaking, while all that content would be categorized as owned media because it's media that's produced and owned by the startup, by demonstrating subject matter expertise around a relevant topic, a founder in that situation can position herself as an expert to make herself available for press interviews. Likewise, her owned media channels or owned media content can be shared with those who are experiencing the same problem. In the case of this founder who's developing a fitness app, she could produce some really great content that are related to the problem she's trying to solve that would be very shareable. And that sharing would become effectively earned media. Now, as a startup matures, more coordinated earned media can be developed, such as with the example you illustrated a moment ago with Fortnite's dispute with Apple and Google. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, essentially what it came down to is Fortnite turned on a new payment capability that collected in-app purchases directly violated the App Store and Play Store terms of service. Now, Epic Games, Fortnite's parent company, knew that Fortnite would be banned from those app stores as a result. So it had at the ready that video that Shafiq referenced, that a video mocking Apple by spoofing Apple's own iconic 1984 themed ad, making Apple the dictator effectively. Also, though, Epic Games, Fortnite, had prepared a coordinated PR strategy to maximize earned media from both the press as well as its customers. Trust me, it was pretty effective because both my kids started talking about it as soon as it came out, and I had no idea what they were talking about. So not only was that well planned, realistically, that can only happen every once in a while. You start to burn people out. And the reason why is earned media is based on newsworthy events that are worth reporting or discussing. So unless a startup does constantly court controversy, as Shafiq kind of alluded with Tesla's leaning into a change in use of energy for mass transportation, coming up with new newsworthy events is not always sustainable. In matter of fact, for Tesla, they can't just only complain about the oil and gas industry. They have to talk about their battery technology and new breakthroughs. That makes it newsworthy. Okay, that's all the time we have for questions right now. If you're looking to build your startup lean, please click the link nearby or drop your question in the comments below. Also, please subscribe to our channel and click the notification button so you can receive immediate access to our latest episodes. Building Lean is brought to you by the LeanMastery Incubator. Unlike other incubators or accelerators that rush you to pitch to investors whether you're ready or not, LeanMastery guides you in building key business functions that turn up revenues fast, which puts you in the best position to successfully raise money and outrun your competition. Learn more about how you can become a LeanMastery Incubator member at leanmastery.co. Thank you all for watching, and we look forward to helping you be successful in pursuing your startup dreams by building lean.